Chapter 746, Same Night. After hearing the hanged man's description, Klein couldn't help but recall Red Angel Medici and the evil spirit found in the underground ruin. However, he didn't share the discoveries of his exploration this time. Firstly, there wasn't a need to, and secondly, it involved Miss Sharon. As for the other members, they had already learned that Banzi Harbor had been destroyed. And since the hanged man hadn't revealed any new information, there was no need for them to reply to the matter. Realizing that no one was saying anything, Alger glanced at the world before looking back. He said calmly, "That's all from me." The hermit immediately turned to look at Fours. "Ma'am, what do you know about Mr. Dorr? I can pay for the corresponding piece of information." Fours, who didn't wish to expose her problems, suddenly hesitated when she heard the latter half of the sentence. She was momentarily tempted. "Payment, I wonder how much Ma'am Hermit can pay me. I don't really know much about Mr. Dorr either. Furthermore, some of the knowledge stems from Mr. Fool's words." Fours looked to the end of the long bronze table once again and asked, "Honorable Mr. Fool, can I tell her?" As he met her every full moon, Klein knew that Miss Magician's financial situation wasn't in the best of states, so he smiled with a nod. "Yes." Fours silently heaved a sigh of relief, turned to Catlia and said, £500. You can request for a private exchange." Catlia didn't bargain. After some thought, she said, "There's no need, just say it directly." She wished to see if the other members would be able to figure out more about Mr. Dorr from Miss Magician's description. Fours nodded and deliberated over her words. "I once obtained a mystical item that helped me traverse the spirit world. But after using it, I would hear strange ravings every full moon or blood moon. It would inflict an excruciating pain upon me that puts me on the verge of losing control. And according to Mr. Fool, these ravings come from Mr. Dorr." She paused and added, "He might be asking for help." So Fours has been silently suffering such pain. She usually doesn't show it, acting as though she greatly enjoys life. As Audrey subconsciously pitied her friend, she began wondering how she hadn't discovered anything abnormal about Fours with her spectator powers. Mystical item that can traverse the spirit world, ravings during the full moon, suspected to be asking for help. Catlia repeated Miss Magician's key points as she nodded with satisfaction. "Thank you for your description." She then swept her gaze at the other members, regretfully realizing that no one else had any additional reaction. The free exchange continued and soon came to an end. Watching the other members leave and helping them complete a few transactions, Klein returned to the real world as he sat in his reclining chair, feeling relaxed as he rested for a while. Following that, he walked to his desk, and he picked up a pen and paper to write to Sharon. He told her that the scales of luck had been sold, leaving only the biological poison bottle for sale, as well as the lunatic beyonder characteristic. After folding the letter, he wrote the information such as 126 Guard Street, Hillston, and Ma'am Mariam. Then, he opened his iron cigar case and made Admiral of Blood Center silently appear beside him. This wraith acted like a valet as he humbly picked up the letter on the table before vanishing from the room. A few streets away, a letter appeared out of nowhere in a mailbox as it fell inside. East Chester County, the Hall family manor. Audrey looked at the mirror with her unfocused green eyes as the contents of the Book of Secrets filled her mind. This knowledge formed an illusory book that appeared upon being recalled. She could then flip to the corresponding page simply by willing it. This was a result of Klein directly using a portion of the powers from the mysterious space above the gray fog to create a product that was a fusion of information bestowment and the seer's dreamscape ability to recall it. It could last a week or two. And this was sufficient for Audrey to finish reading the Book of Secrets. If she had anything she couldn't recall in the future, she could always request for a bestowment. Mr. Fool's condition seems to be improving. Audrey thought in delight as a twinkle gradually returned to her eyes. She stood up, walked to the door, and said to the bored golden retriever who was sprawled on the ground outside, "Susie, you don't look ladylike enough this way." Susie looked around warily and twitched her nose before saying, "This is the most standard action during hound training." "But you aren't a qualified hound." Audrey lampooned as she said with a smile, "I thought you would reply. Audrey, I'm only a dog." Susie replied in a serious manner. An excessive use of repeated words makes it easy for others to grasp your personal habits and mental gymnastics. Audrey, that's what that book on psychology wrote. Audrey was momentarily at a loss for words. At that moment, she saw her father, Earl Hall, with his valet and attendant walking up the castle's staircase. Even though it was sunny outside, this place remained dark and gloomy. There were even candle stands that had been lit. They were embedded in the walls as they illuminated the stairs. "This castle is just too old. I think it needs a major renovation," Earl Hall casually grumbled to his daughter. Audrey nodded in a demure manner and said, "Yes, my dear Earl. This is precisely why I dislike this place. It makes me feel like I'm slowly rotting away. But I'm actually spending £13,000 a year to repair this place," Earl Hall said with a regretful chuckle. Audrey glanced at Susie and smiled at her father. "Father, is there something for me?" Earl Hall pointed at the papers in his attendant's hands. "A telegram from Backlund. Someone is selling 10% of the Backlund Bike Company. Are you interested? I think this industry has a very bright future, and it's currently far from reaching its lowest estimated prospects." Bike, Audrey found the word rather unfamiliar as her eyes darted around, her expression slightly confused. Earl Hall smiled at his daughter. "It's a kind of machinery with 2 wheels that allows a person to ride on it. You can understand it as a carriage for the ordinary person. In Lone and Backlund, the majority of the population doesn't mostly comprise of the nobles or businessmen, but the ordinary people who engage in labor work. Next would be the type of people with some technical skill and standing. This is the target audience of the bike. They have absolute numbers, as well as the required ability to purchase it. Even if 10% of them are willing to buy a bike, it will lead to quite a wonderful development for this company. Yes, they hold the corresponding patents." Audrey trusted her father's foresight, and she could understand the prospects as described by him. She nodded gently and said, "How much would the 10% shares cost?" "According to preliminary estimates, the Backlund Bike Company is currently valued at £50,000. This is because the product's advertising and sales campaign still needs time to develop further. Therefore, you can't naively believe that the 10% shares are only worth £5,000. I suggest that you bid £8,000 in the first round of bidding, with a bottom-line price of £15,000. I will send people to help you in this matter," Earl Hall answered succinctly. "About £10,000. I've mostly used up the cash for this month." Clearly a little embarrassed, Audrey said, "Father, I won't be able to produce that much money on such short notice. And selling my shares, estate, collections, or await their profits will require some time." Earl Hall laughed out loud. "There's no need to go through so much hassle. You can mortgage your shares in the Backlund Munitions Corporation or Pritz Commercial Marine Company to the bank for a short period of time to obtain the cash. Once the matter is complete, you can mortgage the shares in the Backlund Bike Company for a longer period of time, using the mortgage loan to pay off the first loan. This way, you'll only need to pay about a week to 2 weeks of relatively high interest to complete the trade. And the bike company's dividends a year would be enough to cover the interest of the long-term loan. You'll then be able to patiently wait for its value be recognized, and that's a high-probability event." Although Audrey had never received a complete education in commercial finance, she wasn't too unfamiliar with such matters with a major banker as her father. Some thought had allowed her to understand the entire process as she asked as a form of confirmation. "That's to say, I only need to pay about £200 to £300 to obtain 10% of the bike company's shares." "Or lower," Earl Hall said with a smile. Audrey understood her father. As the largest shareholder of the Varvet Bank, as well as the 4th largest shareholder of the Backlund Bank, he had the ability to help his daughter to obtain the most reasonable interest for a short-term loan. "Thank you, my dear Earl," Audrey smiled as she curtsied. Under the moonlight, with the dark blue seawater nearing the color of black, Alger Wilson stood at the bow of the ship as he watched the silent outline of Pasu Island. This was the headquarters of the Church of Storms, a land where a true God's grace was showered. As a middle-ranking member of the church, Alger recalled himself coming here only 3 times. The first was him finding the Blue Avenger and after advancing to Seafarer. The second was his report last year, and this time. And very long ago, as a mixed blood with dark blue hair, he had been selected to enter the headquarters to be a member of the children's choir, but without any talent in singing, he was soon dismissed. He returned to the chapel on the island, where he was born to be a servant. And the priest there was an extremely violent superior to his subordinates. Every time he recalled that piece of history, his expression would turn extremely livid, fortifying his thirst to become a high-ranking member of the church. Amidst the wind, the Blue Avenger silently cruised forward into the harbor. In Backland, which had also ushered in the night, Emlyn White, who was dressed in a starched formal suit and top hat, infiltrated the residence of another sanguine baron, Ruse Bathory. He believed that Ruse would be taking action soon to reel in his bait. And for a sanguine, a night with the crimson moon was very suitable for hunting. After an unknown period of time, Emlyn's eyes suddenly lit up. He saw a figure leap from a window facing the house's rear before landing silently on the ground.